Hello, welcome back to another video. I'll admit it's been a while since my last devlog. Work has been pretty intense these past few months, so I decided to focus all my free time on developing the game rather than making updates. But I think that was the right call because I finally finished refining my bartering system and I'm really pleased with how it's turned out. The first big change you'll notice is that I've updated the bartering canvas layout to include the customer in the shot. To do this, I added a camera to each customer and switched to it when the bartering canvas opens. When the UI closes, the view switches back to the main player camera. I've also added a typewriter effect to the dialogue. This is handled with a coroutine that loops through each letter of the text and displays them one at a time. By passing the selected dialogue as a parameter, I can easily reuse the text whenever I need to. The bartering function itself is also managed with a coroutine. Since bartering involves multiple conditions, the script updates dynamically based on whether the player presses the haggle or accept button. With haggling, the game determines the correct customer response based on the player's offer, the customer's current offer, and the number of remaining haggle attempts. While bartering is still active, the coroutine continues running, allowing the player and the customer to go back and forth. If the player presses the accept button, or if other conditions end the bartering, the loop stops and the coroutine finishes. This triggers the exit bartering canvas method, which stops all active coroutines, resets the variables, closes the UI, and switches back to the player camera. With these changes, the bartering system is now functional, responsive, and dynamic, making every negotiation feel more natural. I've also made some key changes to the customer class and how haggling percentages are handled. Originally, I had the haggle percentage apply to a percentage of the player's previous offer, but this caused an issue where the customer would sometimes offer less than the last bid, depending on how the player haggled. That obviously didn't make any sense. So to fix this, I changed the logic so that the customer always increases their offer based on their previous offer, rather than the player's. This ensures that every counter offer progresses logically. I also realised that to prevent the customer from ever offering more than the player's last offer, the accept offer threshold must always be higher than the haggle percentage. With these adjustments, the bartering system now works exactly as intended, providing a balanced challenge where the player has to think carefully about their offers. To test how well the system works, I created 3 different customers with unique haggling styles. Fred Phillips is an average customer. His initial offer is 40% of the item price with a 15% haggle percentage and a 20% accept offer threshold. Greg Mathers is more difficult to negotiate with. He starts lower at 30% with a 10% haggle percentage and 20% accept offer threshold, making him much tougher to please. Maggie Smith, on the other hand, is generous and easy to deal with. She starts at 60% and has a 20% haggle percentage and a 35% accept offer threshold, meaning she's much more likely to agree to a quick deal. By adjusting these values and tweaking customer dialogue, I can create distinct characters with their own personalities and negotiation styles, adding variety to each transaction. All of these values will, of course, be hidden from the player. However, I have been considering whether to include a small window displaying all the previous offers for reference. This would help players avoid accidentally bidding higher than a previous offer and offending the customer, but at the same time I really like the realism of having to remember your bids, making negotiation feel more natural. Instead, I'm leaning towards adding an additional dialogue warning before the customer decides to leave. This way the player gets a gentle nudge rather than the customer storming out straight away and potentially leaving you with a bad review. Let me know in the comments, what do you think? Should previous bids be displayed, or is the extra challenge more fun? Finally, I have updated my player movement script so that the customer leaves once the haggling is over and any customer still browsing will take their place at the counter. And there we have it, a fully functional bartering system. There's still plenty to do before it's complete. I need to implement a system to track profits and losses, add a review system for good and bad customer experience, expand the customer's database to prevent duplicate selections, and stop the player from moving whilst using the customer camera, though I might save that for when I build my custom character controller. The list goes on, but for now, I'm really happy with how the haggling logic works, and I think it strikes a good balance between realism and challenge. Let me know, would you prefer a history of previous offers to help avoid mistakes, or do you like the idea of remembering them yourself for added realism? Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.